Well, I wish there was some sort of witty line I could say or something to like make this a fun and exciting introduction to our live stream episode we're recording. But everything kind of sucks right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm your friend Joseph Craven. I'm joined by a real jolly lad by the name of Alex Lebel. And we are at the tail end of a extremely bizarre week, not just in the world of Liverpool or the Premier League or sports, but just kind of in the world. This is a super strange scenario we're all living through right now. And we are, we got to get together and talk a little bit about the team. We got to record a podcast for this week and, might as well go ahead and do it live. So anyone joining us on YouTube with our live stream, thank you for jumping in. I wish it was under better circumstances, but here we are. Okay, so let's just recap a bit of the past week. Liverpool followed in the footsteps of Real Madrid, the previous Champions League winners, by bowing out of the competition in the exact same stage that they bowed out of the competition. So that's becoming a tradition now, I think. Whoever wins it has to be out as soon as the round of 16 starts up. Is that it? Round of 16? Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I get the number right? For some reason, I second guessed myself. Of course, we're still dealing with the absence of Alisson, which was greatly felt, to say
I think it was a little noticeable.
In that loss to Atletico Madrid. Also, the continued struggles of our attacking players to finish was exemplified. But then after all this happens, it I believe all started with the NBA shutting down for at least a period of time. They've said they're definitely down for at least 30 days. And other sports leagues around the world following suit after that. The Premier League, not the exception, has we were planning on getting together and streaming during some morning matches. Yet instead, it's just us hanging out because there's no matches going on. So, what's going through your mind, Alex? What in the world what do we do? What are we doing right now? Obviously we can't. There's no comparison. Like, we've never lived through anything as strange as this in terms of all of life just kind of being put on halt around the world to keep a disease or a virus from spreading. But I don't know. What's going through your mind about all this stuff?
First thing is that I need to go to the store and just buy way too much toilet paper.
Right.
That's the main thing. That if I need to be stuck.
Oh, no.
That was such a poorly timed sneeze in light of the discussion.
Oh, no. Alex has the COVID already.
But yeah, I just need to go and be a jerk in the store and hit people with my cart and buy too much and cause shortages and all that kind of stuff.
Why toilet paper? Why is it that people go and buy so much toilet paper? Like, I have never once in my life been in a situation in which I'm like, if I really need a surplus of toilet paper to keep going. I've been in situations in which I'm like, I need Powerade. If I'm sick, I need some Powerade, Gatorade, something like that. Get those electrolytes. If my stomach's acting up, I can't hold stuff down, whatever. Never once have I been in a situation in which I'm like, I need about 30 effing rolls of toilet paper on hand just in case.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time when America is ruining not adopting the bidet,
right,
as a viable bathroom utensil, I guess I want to call it. That makes it sound even more gross than it actually is.
Bathroom utensil. I'm going to put that as an early 2020 nominee for best phrase of the year.
Yeah. I don't know what else to do. I just have to not really go outside. I mean, that sneeze apart, I don't uh, just trying not to get it from anybody else, because and you've seen those videos of those children licking the guard railings and
Yep.
all sorts of stuff. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what other people have touched and all that. So I don't know, it's just weird. And now everyone was like, "Oh, that was just a good weekend to stay in and watch some sports." And then sports was like, "Hold on,
just wait, just wait." Yeah, it's just strange. I mean, we were pretty young when like the September 11th attacks happened in the US, but that is maybe the only other thing I can think about or I could think of that compares to like a massive like shutdown or disruption of everyday life. Obviously much different scenario because that was a terrorist attack, and this is a really contagious flu. So it's a little bit different, but it even that didn't shut things down to the extent that this is right now. I mean, we're talking about the NBA suspending play for at least 30 days. All other sports leagues, probably doing at least the same. I remember September 11th, we went back to college football within a couple of weeks. Like there was a small, wait, but we basically just heightened security at large crowds and went back at it because I mean, nothing was spreading necessarily. We just protected ourselves. It's just kind of unprecedented. It's odd. It's bizarre. And it's especially bizarre considering, we're not entirely sure how lethal this thing might be. We don't really know much about it. It's just kind of we know it's out there, so we might as well be super protected. And so I think obviously I think it's the right decision to shut down as much as we can to prevent the spread of something we don't really know much about. But it's weird. It's unprecedented, and we're getting to kind of experience it firsthand, which is also kind of bizarre,
Yeah, and like there's nothing else to focus on because all the stuff that would distract you from it is being canceled because it requires other people. And that's right. Kind of the worst thing you can have right now is other people.
Oh, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about that disappointing loss to Atletico Madrid earlier in the week. Obviously a sticky situation for Liverpool in regards to being in a spot where we needed multiple goals to begin with. You go away in the first leg of a 1-1 head-to-head competition like that. You go away and you walk out of there with a draw or like a 1-goal loss. That's acceptable. That's good. Obviously, like victory is the biggest thing. But I mean, if you minimize the damage, especially in light of missing Jordan Henderson, all the different injuries we've been struggling with, the just poor form in general, all that stuff. So not an ideal situation, but we did have, Hendo back. For most of the game, we looked like the obvious better team. Had kind of not taken advantage of chances to win in regular time, went into extra time, and an egregious error by the backup keeper, reminding us all why he's the backup. It's
cementing his place.
Yeah, it just kind of sets everything back down to a harsh reality check. So that match, I mean, obviously, it really comes down to just a few things. One of them being the massive error. Another one being us not taking advantage of chances that we, in a hint of better form, we score most of those. What's your take on that match? Like, what do we even say about it? How do we sum that up?
And it's really disappointing. I think disappointing is probably the best, most apt word, because it is disappointing in the sense that we played really well. Honestly, we created so many chances, and I'd seen a lot of people put it that it's been the best performance at home or the best performance in Europe that we've had since the 4-0 against Barcelona. And I kind of agree. I mean, we did most things right. We got ourselves into great positions, and our finishing really let us down And for a team that we're used to seeing score so many goals, even though it hasn't been our style to just overwhelm teams with 5-6 goals, you expect them to finish that. And it's just kind of us being at the tail end of this dip that we've had, that it's just not flying in. We're off by that millimeter at the striking point and the ball isn't flying. I mean, we still hit 2 posts too. And but even apart from all that, even after missing 400,000 chances and having 2 billion shots and 20 million on goal, we still did what we needed to do up until the point where Adrian gets a great hockey assist. And I know the players have said that these things happen and mistakes happen, and that's true. Mistakes happen. It's just very unfortunate that that's when it happened and that's how it happened.
Yes.
That the person that gave up the ball was the goalie, and that meant that he was kind of shook and out of position at the same time when they were countering, when he gave it to him 30 yards from goal. So that really turned the match, because we did what we needed to do. We scored the goals. We were up on aggregate. We used the power of Anfield. It was one of the last matches across anywhere really that had fans.
Right.
Worked up into a point. But we do need to be kicking ourselves if we can, because we seem to miss most of the things that we're most of the things we're trying to kick. But I don't know. It's just we now have a lot of forced time to reflect upon that, and maybe we'll learn the lessons and try to figure out why we can't shoot anymore, and why everything that we were doing so well before isn't working anymore.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I mean, you're absolutely right in in everything you said, and it reminds me of there's kind of there's an adage in UFC and like boxing, where the old adage is don't leave anything in the hands of the judges, which basically is control what you can control. And Liverpool controlled 95% of what we can control in that match. The part that we played to our strengths. Yeah, we're not a team that has made a living this season off of scoring 5 or 6 goals a game, but we are a team that has made a living off of scoring 2 or 3 and preventing everyone else from scoring. For almost that entire match, we did that exactly. The only thing we didn't do was get a couple of goals,
Yeah.
That was it. Adrian, obviously, or honestly, in the regular time, did great. Atletico didn't necessarily have a huge amount of scoring chances, but the few that they did, he did fine, and so it's really unfortunate that once we got into, extra time, it's almost like he was on borrowed time. he was due a mistake, and he had been kind enough to prolong it until then. But when it happened, it was the biggest one possible. But yeah, like we controlled what we could control for the most part and tried to play to our strengths and hide our weaknesses. But eventually, like, you can only hide your weaknesses for so long. And we were playing with a backup keeper who, is more error prone than our starting keeper, and showed it in one massive moment. And it sucks. But if we look on the bigger scale of it, I mean, well, first and foremost, how much did it impact you? How much, how frustrated, how much did it hurt you to see that happen the way that it did?
I'm still pretty frustrated because, one, it was mostly of our own making. The first leg was more down to us being really bad than them being particularly good in any way. The second leg, we were a lot better, but we were still missing that killer final part of the whole puzzle. And even though we get the job done up until the 98th minute in extra time, then things go wrong. Like, we did kind of what we needed to do, and then we're undone by just sloppy play and the unfortunate reality of having to play the backup keeper. And it is disappointing, and especially in light of so many things being up in the air now. You hate to have any part of this team's legacy potentially impacted by not winning what they probably should have won. I mean, we're still the best team in Europe, even if we're having a dip. We're still the best team in the world, and to see trophies that should have been ours kind of slip through our fingers, because of just some ineptitudes of our own making, is really frustrating. So I hate that we're out of this competition.
Yeah, I mean, it does suck. I think this would be so much more devastating if not for the fact that we played in 2 straight Champions League finals, won one of them, and had a massive lead in the Premier League on the way to what looked like, our first Premier League title. Well, technically first Premier League title ever, but first title in 30 years. So some of the exterior context there kind of helps it maybe feel a little less terrible. But I think you're right. The lingering awful feeling is entirely because this was of our own doing. Atletico did not do anything better than we did. Atletico did not look like a better squad. Atletico did not necessarily move the ball better. They didn't take better shots. They didn't defend better, It just kind of it was ours, and we didn't score the goals when we should have. We didn't make the right passes when we should have. All of that. It just, it was kind of bad form for a team that was really better than that, and it showed. And so that's where the pain sets in. In light of everything else going on in what is a historical season so far, up until this hiatus or suspension of play, I don't know what we're technically calling it, but what do you think the impact of this loss is?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because it's very rare in the middle of a season that you have a key loss like this and then you're just forced to think about it for 2 months, essentially. Like, you have no games to bounce back from. Yeah, it's kind of the only comparable thing I can think of is losing 6-1 to Stoke on the last day of the season and then having to sit with that all summer. And this was not nearly as bad as that, but it's just something that I think everyone on our team is well aware that we should have won it, and we have to think about that this whole time. There's no real training, I don't think, to play your way back into form or sharpen up. So that will be interesting to see. I don't know. It's hard to even process how we could potentially get back for this, because we don't really know what's going to happen or what the players are allowed to do or what anybody's allowed to do and what they're doing. I guess they're just playing FIFA, talking on PlayStation Party Chat or something like that.
Right. They're all up in they're in WhatsApp or in Discord right now, just kind of hanging out and going, oh, well, I mean, here, this is it, guys.
Yeah.
It's weird. For me, and I don't know what this says about me, as a fan, or I think, I don't know, but I wasn't necessarily devastated when I was devastated when the moment happened. My wife was sitting in the room as it was our spring break, both of us off this week, and she's sitting in the room as Adrian makes this horrible error, and obviously it's oh, they're about to score and get an away goal, and we're screwed now. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And it just, it was devastating is the right word for it. I literally just kind of dropped in my chair. I was like, are you kidding? That's it. But I feel like there's something about the fact that we were on the verge of a historic Premier League run of just dominating the entire league, and on our way to that first title in forever. Didn't upset me as much. It was the frustration, but it didn't upset me as much. But now that this has happened, where everything's kind of in limbo, not really sure what happens next. I'm not sure what to make of it. So what do you think is the What do you think is the best case scenario? I know we were kind of talking about maybe putting that question towards the end of our recording session here, but let's go ahead and jump into it now. What do you think is the best case scenario for the league? Because it does seem like the Premier League is in a better spot than the NBA or something like that has to have like a tournament to decide a champion, in the fact that there is a clear-cut favorite. And if the season ended right now, you could just say, okay, this team was running away with the league. They earned it. If we call the season short, we actually have a clear-cut winner as well. What do you think is the best case scenario for the Premier League at all? I mean, what do we do?
And I'll start with saying what I think is the worst case scenario, in the sense that it's a bad idea and it would suck for us, is that they void the season, which I think is just a completely ridiculous idea.
I don't see why that would even be in the discussion. Like, to just ignore the past several months. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like it would make more sense if it was like where MLS is right now, where they're in their second week and not much has happened, and you could say, okay, not enough has happened to really impact where anyone would have been at the end of this. But the Premier League season is like 7/8 of the way done. There's not really like, well, I guess we'll never know what would have happened. It's like, okay, we clearly know what would have happened champions wise. We know at least one team that would have been relegated. So you can't just be like, well, all this didn't matter.
Right.
And it's almost a testament to kind of how bad most of the teams have been this season, that there are any of them advocating for the season to be voided completely.
Yes.
Try to kind of bail themselves out. But I think the best case is probably that we push the Euros back. We wait until it's safe to continue playing and convening in large groups, and then we just kind of pick up the season where we left off, see where we end at that point, and then adjust next season's schedule potentially to accommodate that, maybe shorten the season or use this, because you can't really say that this off time is an off season that takes the place of the potential summer off season, because nobody can really train. So
we can't train, we can't make transfers. Like, this is very much a forced hiatus, and nothing more.
And there's so much left to be decided, and so many plans that hinge upon where people finish. And it's not just in the Premier League, it's across Europe, and it's not just at the top flight, it's all the way down to the bottom. Like, imagine a team that's leading the Conference Premier, whatever, the non-league tier right below League Two. Like, and taking from non-league to the Football League is massive for any team, and they're sitting there waiting to know if they not only can like make transfers and stuff, but wow, maybe we can pay some people some more, or expand the stands, or just offer better services for people going to games and all like that, stuff like that. So I think we kind of just have to wait until we can pick up from where we left off, because there's so much riding on it. There's so many competitions still left in play, and there's so much at stake for those teams that are still in them.
Yeah, I mean, and it does go back to the fact that the Premier League is a little bit better off than our American leagues that are in limbo, because of the fact that it is the point system. It's a table, it's a little bit easier to stop things where they are and say, okay, this is where things are, and we can move forward. It's a little bit easier to maybe just put things on hold and come back to it later on, that sort of thing. But this doesn't just affect the Premier League. Like you were just saying, I mean, it's all leagues are suspended right now. And because they're all connected, it puts so much, in question of, okay, I mean, what happens to Bournemouth and Villa, Watford and West Ham, those teams, like, what do we do about them? Screw Norwich, they're just, I'm kidding. But, they're, the ones that aren't really in that contention right now. But I mean, between Villa all the way up to West Ham, there's a lot of bouncing around that could be done between those teams. What do we do? Where do the what ifs come into for them? We could look at Liverpool and say, okay, we're massively above everyone else, so it almost was inevitable that we would lift the trophy. There was the off chance that the trophy could have been secured this weekend if play was going on. Which is wild. But then once you get past that, it's like, okay, well, what about, Chelsea, United, Wolves, Sheffield, even Tottenham, like the battle for 4th or 5th place. That was still up in the air. You get past that, how much does this impact, the championship? What teams were looking forward to getting that, you were talking about the getting into like the football league in general, but I mean, how much there's a huge pay difference between the championship and the Premier League. Once you make that money, that impacts. There's just so much of a huge trickle down effect that it just seems like there has to be some sort of at least abridged solution to the final bit of the season. How many match weeks were left anyway? We were just wrapping up match week 29, right?
Yeah, I think it was 9 left.
I just wonder if maybe it is perhaps beneficial to suspend the FA Cup and double up on matches in the Premier League, in the leagues themselves. Do we weigh the importance of, okay, the league is probably more important than just figuring out the end of the FA, that sort of thing. I wonder if that type of solution needs to be explored of let's play, 2 matches a week in just the league itself to wrap things up as soon as we get a chance, that sort of thing. I don't know. Do you think that there is a clear-cut solution, or not a clear-cut? I don't think anything's clear-cut at this point. Do you think there is a more favorable solution on how to finish things up, or what is more important to get a final answer on right now?
I think what will ultimately play out is that club will take precedence over international. Mm-hmm. So finishing league seasons will be more important to most organizations, I think, than playing something like the Euros. And I know that's a huge competition, but especially when the tournament is structured to be all over Europe and it requires a lot of travel, and that has been not a wise thing to be doing of late.
Yep. Hey, you know what? I'd say it's only fair because I think it's clear that the Liverpool players were so concerned about this outbreak, they weren't really focusing on the Atletico match. I think it's clear that we should replay that Atletico match whenever, all of this has died down. I think it's only fair.
Get the hashtag trending, get it going, sign change.org, start the petition. I agree completely. But they've moved the African Cup of Nations to a different time next year. Maybe that is when they slot the Euros in, but there's so much that needs to be sorted out apart from that tournament that I feel like that and anything else. And unfortunately, probably International Champions Cup will get delayed. The Western Union Trophy that we fought so hard to share with Sporting at the beginning of the season. People forget that we might be on course for a quadruple, including that trophy.
Of course, that
might get delayed. So all that stuff, I think that's kind of as far as certain as I can get, is that I think that the league structures will take precedence over anything international wise. But there's so much up in the air. We don't know when this is going to be contained. In a sense, we don't know how this. A lot of it's preemptive, or presumptive 30-day hiatus. Is that the plural of hiatuses?
I don't know, but I love the way it sounded.
So once these hiatus are done, then we'll really know. But the good news is that because they're so long, they've got a lot of time to pro and con table some plans and figure out the best one.
Yeah, I'm looking at the actual calendar right now, and essentially we are planning for sure to postpone match day. Well, technically the City and Arsenal match was match day 28. And then this weekend was supposed to be match day 30. 29 doesn't matter. So we had that. They're definitely like the plan is at the very least to have suspended or postponed 30 and 31, and then possibly pick back up with 32, which is at the beginning of April. So talking about yeah, it sure would. So yeah, I mean, if the best case scenario is we feel like everything is cleared to move forward when April rolls around, I'm thinking if the Premier League is anything at all like what the NBA is hinting at, I'm thinking we're looking more like match day 34, middle of April, a clean 30 days from when play was halted to when it's picked up again. That still leaves, 33, 32, 31, 30. So that's only like 4 match days across the league that would be kind of like postponed. I don't see why there couldn't be a little bit more of a condensed doubling up. If a lot of teams are already making adjustments for continued play in Champions League, Euros, FA Cup, all of the extra competitions, I think that maybe the proper way to go about it is exactly what you're saying. Kind of put everything else to the side and say, okay, no, the league finishes determine so much of other stuff that we should probably focus on that. And yeah, it'll suck for teams that maybe are advancing in other competitions. But this is just such an odd and, unprecedented situation that we're kind of having to figure out what works and what's best as we go. And I think that maybe prioritizing the league finish and trying to get as accurate a league finish as we possibly can would be beneficial. Because, I pulled up the championship table as well, and there's a tight title race going on there. Leeds and West Brom are separated by a point. At the bottom in relegation, it's very similar to what the Premier League looks like right now. Charlton, Hull, Wigan, Middlesbrough, Huddersfield, Stoke, all of those teams separated by 2 points for a possible relegation spot. That's huge. That's important. That sets up so much. The other competitions, and as much as I love being champions of Europe, and hey, if we get to claim that title for another 12 months until
I'll take it. Yeah,
I'll take it for sure. But as much as I love, being able to say that is kind of like icing on the cake when it comes to the way that the actual league finishes set up everything else. The league finishes determines whether you get the right to go after these extra titles like Champions of Europe, all of that. And so I think it's most important that we focus on that. But, we're dumb Americans, and maybe we don't have the right perspective because maybe we're, people in England have a different priority than we might. But also we're Liverpool fans, and we've got a massive lead at the top of the table, so we want the league to finish so we can get
and in most of the other top leagues across Europe, there are title races, and no way in hell are any of those teams going to be like, yeah, let's just call it. Let's just say how things are and how we are right now. Because there's so many teams that could be on the verge of taking down one of the bigger dynasties in their leagues, and they want that chance to do so. And I don't think they're going to agree to just end things as they are. And that there's going to be so many teams outside of England which will affect the ability to do anything else that will want to continue, and rightfully so.
Yeah, looking at the Bundesliga, for example, Bayern's got a 4-point lead at the top of things, but Leipzig and Mönchengladbach are all, not that far behind. A couple things go their way, could be an interesting title. Yeah, there's a lot of leagues that have much more interesting title challenges going on than the Premier League has right now, and it would be a kind of a disservice to everyone else to not try to prioritize that, I would think. But again, that's just our opinions here. What about with Liverpool? What do we focus on now? Obviously, there's not a whole lot the team can do if we can't train and, can't make transfers, all that. We can get players healthy again. Obviously, that's huge. And when everyone is, healthy again, and when the whole virus scare has hopefully moved on, I mean, what do we need to do to get things right in the way that the team is playing?
First of all, definitely get everyone healthy injury-wise, and then keep everyone healthy virus-wise.
Yep.
It's the number one priority. But I think Klopp and his coaching staff will have a lot of time to really identify what has tripped us up in these past few weeks. If they think it's more than just a dip in form, or if they think that dip in form could have been eased by something, I think they will take a lot of time to study the film and maybe look ahead to the summer and see, okay, what can we add to this team? Because I know James Pierce wrote a really good article in our favorite website, The Athletic. Of course, I had to bring it up, but kind of about what can make this team better. And that has been something that we've been talking about for a little bit, is how do we take this team that is really, really good and make it even better? Because we can't just sit still. Us sitting still last summer and then adding one person and making it and doing what we have done is a complete anomaly relative to the rest of the history of the sport, really, I think. And so what can we do to this team to add to it? I mean, we've got, and I think that will be a lot of the focus, because we don't know when we can start playing again. And sure, they'll focus on the tactics and maybe not focusing or tweaking the fullback play to make it even better. But we've got to start looking ahead now that there's only one competition left for us, and we've pretty much got it wrapped up. So is there a way to add someone to this front three and be able to rotate them and not have anybody get upset or lose form? Are our bench players good enough? What do we do with someone like Divock Origi, who I think has worked his way into Klopp's good graces, obviously, but is there someone that's more reliable? Right. What do we do with someone like Xherdan Shaqiri, who's been hurt, and even when he was fit, was not necessarily first choice? What do we do with someone like Naby Keita, who can't seem to stay fit to save his life?
Yeah.
And I guess that's not probably a very poor choice of words given the circumstances, but that the global circumstances. But I just mean that he's not fit very often. He's got a lot of muscular injuries that have been brought upon by mismanagement of his well-being, I would say, by his national team. But we've got a lot of choices to make. And Bobby scored his first goal in 1,000 minutes at home.
Yeah,
we love
1,000
Bobby.
years. It feels like
we love Bobby, but do we do better if we get a more natural goal scorer? So these are a lot of questions that I think that the fabled transfer committee and Klopp and his coaching staff will really spend a lot of time thinking about.
It is a weird situation to feel like has any benefits to it.
Yeah.
But, honest, rest could be beneficial in this situation, because I feel like we always joke about how we come back from breaks and we're terrible. Because that's what tends to happen. But those are always momentary breaks where you don't really get much of an actual break. You just kind of aren't training or playing an actual match. This is a break in which we actually will be forced to take a real minor break from everything. And obviously that is not that's not important, or the football aspect of that is not important compared to the grand scale aspect of things. And, Jurgen Klopp, in his great statement that he made, kind of talked about that, how the priorities are get people healthy and make sure people are safe above everything else. And our colleague Zach Osborne actually just messaged us a little bit earlier in the group text that the president of the World Health Association had shared that statement from Jurgen and praised him for his perspective in this situation, which is hilarious coming from a manager who hates it when people ask him about things that aren't football related, because he's like, what does my opinion matter? So it's really funny that he it shows he's a humble and grounded person with a lot of great perspective. To not think that his opinion actually does matter that much, but is grounded enough to then say, hey, look, because my opinion doesn't matter that much, if I'm going to talk about this thing, I think it's important enough for me to make a statement about it. The grand perspective is everyone needs to get healthy from a non-football standpoint. And I think that allows us to not have to, us being the players and managers, all of that, allows us to not have to think about the sport for a little bit of time. Clear their heads a bit, stay in shape, stay healthy, but not be sitting around with all of the everyday stresses that come with competing constantly. Get a little bit of better headspace, and it might help some of those issues. I'm very curious to see if that does help out. If this serves as almost a minor off season of sorts, and whenever play does resume, if the team comes back chomping at the bit like they did at the beginning of this season. I'm very curious about that. Yeah. I guess an important question as well is, what in the world are we going to do as fans and podcasters? What's our plan, man?
Welcome to the You'll Never Talk Alone production meeting, where we are just going to live on air try to figure out what we're going to do until things get better and better.
Yep. I mean, it does go without saying, obviously, this is not our job. This is something we do for fun because we love the team, we love the sport, and it helps us process the bad times, having people to vent with. So we're not under any pressure to force the issue to create content just because we have to. I was listening to going back to The Athletic. I was listening to
please sponsor us.
Yeah, just sponsor us, please. The No Dunks NBA podcast, which is a daily podcast. Those guys are hired by The Athletic to produce a daily show, and they're like, well, things are about to get weird at our studios. We don't really have to worry about that as much. So we might be a little bit infrequent. We're going to try to come up with stuff to at least, do semi-regular episodes, but without matches to break down, it's going to be a lot more like our looking back over the last 10 years type of episode, bonus episodes, that sort of thing. But we'll probably get a little bit infrequent. At the same time, it's going to free us up to maybe do more with the YouTube channel, do some FIFA simulations, do some dumb situations on FIFA, stuff like that. We'll kind of figure it out, but we obviously our priorities are more in line with making sure that we and our workplaces are the places that actually pay us are good to go. Alex, what are you going to be doing without sports in your life, without the podcast being as necessary, I guess? What are you going to be doing with your time?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just time to focus on washing my hands, making sure everybody I know knows that you should wash your hands very thoroughly, and just kind of focus on good health practices. But also, I guess, it's time for different entertainment media, I guess, to watch television shows. I guess I don't know. I don't want to sound callous by describing what's going to happen with sports gone, but it's just weird because this, like we mentioned earlier, pretty much all of the things that we would use to escape from kind of the drone of fear and negativity kind of around the world right now, those are gone. So it's time to figure out what can we do to maybe take our minds off of that for just a little bit. And if anybody out there actually did listen to this, we hope that this did this for you, because it can be really scary out there and there's a lot going on, and sometimes you just need to get away for it for a while. And with so many of those things gone, like concerts and all that stuff, it's weird, but we're going to get through this and find something to fill the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'll probably give us all a little bit of time to find perspective. I know it's going to take you at least a couple of weeks to reply to all of the messages that you just received, judging by how much your phone was shaking there.
Yeah.
Mr. Popular here today.
Yeah.
But it'll probably give us all a little bit of a perspective. We'll have time where we won't be quite as busy or distracted all the time. I think that's a major issue that we all have in this modern world of just kind of always going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing and never really slowing down. Where it's forcing us to slow down, to take our health seriously,
Mm-hmm.
to take our community health a little bit more seriously, which I think is a huge and very important thing. I don't know. There might be some secret benefits to this. I just hope and pray, obviously, that everyone can stay healthy in the meantime, and that this does not end up being as severe as it could be. That this does end up being a case of we were more cautious than we needed to be for the benefit of everybody. Because again, I think this is the right thing to do. Suspend as much as possible. It's just an unprecedented thing, so it's difficult to wrap our brains around.
Yeah, I mean, we need to be okay with making it look like it was blown out of proportion, because the only way it will look like if it was blown out of proportion is if we do all the things that everyone is telling us to do to stay healthy, and it doesn't take off like that. So everyone be okay with that, please, so that nobody gets sick. Yeah, and I can't remember if Klopp said it in his statement, but I know a lot of people have said that soccer is the most important of the least important things in life, and I think we're really gonna realize kind of how fun but also insignificant really it all kind of is in this time of just there's nothing.
Yep. I mean, that's exactly it. At the end of the day, it is an actually unimportant thing in the grand scheme, a fun diversion. Hopefully we get a little bit more perspective out of it. So, all right. Well, everyone, please stay safe and healthy and wash your hands as much as possible. When we, as a podcast, figure out a bit more some of the content that we're going to try to produce in the meantime, or if we decide to just take a little bit of time to relax ourselves, to rest up and get healthy ourselves, we'll let you know for sure. So be sure that you are following YNTA Podcast on Twitter. And if you go to our Twitter account, you'll see the link. If you happen to be listening to this, you'll see the link to the actual YouTube channel where we often broadcast live or do other things. And stay tuned on that, because that's always just a secondary thing where we put more stuff up out there whenever time allows, when we feel like it, when we got good ideas. And during this next little bit of time where everything is fairly quiet, prime opportunity to put up some stupid YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you posted. Just stay in touch with us. And as said before, wash your hands, take your vitamin C, stay healthy.
Yeah, stay healthy.
Let's control this thing, and we'll jump back in with you all very, very soon once again. Alex, have a good rest of your Saturday, man.
Hey, you too. I don't know what to do. We've never done this and finished at like 11 a.m.
Yeah, this is it. Like normally we're recording at night, and I got the rest of the day. I got a small to-do list. Let's see what's on this to-do list. To do, take a TV that I moved to the living room back to the bedroom. All right, doesn't look like I have much going on this Saturday, turns out. So that's Alex Level. I'm your friend Joseph Craven. Shout out to our compadres, Will Caves, Zach Osborne, and Andrew Ainsworth, who I'm wearing my 2019-2020 kit right now as we record. Shout out to Andrew. He's right. You don't see the fact that the stripes don't go all the way up when you're wearing it. You can't see it.
I can see it.
It means nothing to me. Thank you for joining us. Andrew, why don't you sign us off on this Saturday morning live stream? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening later on. Andrew, sign us off, and we'll see you all next time on You'll Never Talk Alone.
There it is.